𝗏𝗏𝗧𝗖𝗛 was an American-British actor, singer, director, and producer whose career spanned over 5 decades, marked by a blend of television stardom, musical success, and personal triumphs and challenges. Born David Richard Solberg on August 28, 1943, in Chicago, Illinois, he emerged as one of the most recognizable faces of 1970s American television, particularly through his role as Detective Kenneth Hutch Hutchinson in the iconic cop series Starsky and Hutch. His life story is one of reinvention, from a troubled youth and early activism to global fame, health battles, and a reflective later career in the United Kingdom. Soul's journey reflects the turbulence of the post-war era, the countercultural shifts of the 1960s, and the enduring appeal of charismatic performers in the entertainment industry. This biography delves deeply into his personal life, professional achievements, and the broader context that shaped him, drawing on the nuances of his experiences to paint a comprehensive portrait. Early life and family background. 𝗏𝗏𝗧𝗖𝗛's origins were rooted in the American Midwest, a region known for its sturdy working-class ethos. His father, Dr. Jesse Emery Solberg, was a Norwegian-American educator and Lutheran minister who served as a professor of history and political science at Sioux Falls College in South Dakota. The elder Solberg was not just an academic, he was a man of deep faith and commitment to social justice, which profoundly influenced his son's worldview. David's mother, June Helen Solberg, came from a similar Midwestern stock, providing a stable, if modest, home environment. The family, which included David's older brother John and sister Joy, moved frequently due to his father's career, instilling in young David a sense of adaptability from an early age. The Solberg household was one where intellectual discourse was encouraged. Evenings were often filled with discussions on history, politics, and theology, subjects that Jesse Solberg taught with passion. David later recalled how his father's stories of Norwegian heritage and the struggles of immigrants shaped his understanding of identity and resilience. The family attended Lutheran services regularly, and David's early exposure to music came through church choirs, where he sang hymns and learned the basics of melody and harmony. This religious foundation would later clash with his rebellious teenage years, creating a complex internal dynamic. In 1950, when David was 7, the family relocated to Sioux Falls, South Dakota, a small city that epitomized the heartland values of community and hard work. Here, David attended public schools, excelling in drama and music classes. He was a bright student, but restless, often daydreaming about far-off adventures rather than focusing on rote learning. His father, recognizing this talent, encouraged participation in school plays, where David discovered his knack for performance. By age 10, he was already mimicking radio stars like Jack Benny, entertaining family and friends with spot-on impressions. The move to South Dakota also exposed David to the broader social issues of the time. The Korean War was raging, and his father's pacifist leanings, rooted in Lutheran teachings, sparked early conversations about war and peace. These discussions planted seeds of activism that would bloom in David's adolescence. Summers were spent on relatives' farms, where he learned practical skills like milking cows and baling hay, grounding him in the physical realities of rural life. Yet beneath this idyllic facade, David harbored a growing sense of alienation. He felt like an outsider in the conservative community, his imaginative spirit clashing with the conformity expected of Midwestern boys. By his early teens, the family had moved again, this time to Mankato, Minnesota, where Jesse Solberg took a position at Bethany Lutheran College. David attended high school there, a period marked by both academic promise and personal turmoil. He was involved in debate club and the school newspaper, honing his articulate speaking style. Music remained a constant. He picked up the guitar at 12, teaching himself folk tunes by ear. Influences like Woody Guthrie and Pete Seeger resonated with him, their protest songs echoing the injustices he observed in segregated America. However, high school was not without strife. David struggled with authority, frequently challenging teachers and getting into scraps with peers. His parents, concerned by his defiance, sought counseling, but it only fueled his independence. At 15, a pivotal incident occurred. Inspired by the growing civil rights movement, David participated in a sit-in at a local diner to protest racial discrimination. This act of defiance led to his arrest, a formative experience that radicalized him further. His father, though proud of the principle, worried about the risks, leading to tense family debates. This event underscored David's emerging identity as a socially conscious youth, willing to confront systemic wrongs head-on. Adolescence and the birth of activism. David's late teens were defined by a profound shift toward activism, a response to the turbulent 1960s. After graduating high school in 1961, he briefly attended the University of the Americas in Mexico City, studying political science. The vibrant, politically charged atmosphere there captivated him. He immersed himself in Latin American history, witnessing firsthand the poverty and inequality that fueled revolutions. It was during this time that David began performing folk music in cafes, blending songs with spoken-word poetry about social justice. His guitar became a tool for expression, much like Bob Dylan's, whom he idolized. Returning to the U.S. in 1962, David enrolled at the University of Wisconsin, but formal education soon lost its appeal. The Cuban Missile Crisis heightened his anti-war sentiments, and he dropped out to join the civil rights movement full-time. Relocating to the San Francisco Bay Area, a hotbed of counterculture, David became involved with the Congress of Racial Equality, CORE. He organized protests, marched in Selma alongside Martin Luther King Jr., and even faced jail time for civil disobedience. These experiences were grueling. David later described the fear of police brutality and the exhaustion of endless rallies, but they forged his character. Music intertwined with activism. In 1964, David adopted the stage name David Soul, reportedly inspired by a Kim Novak film, and began performing in folk clubs. His act was unique. He would recite poetry between songs, addressing Vietnam, racism, and environmental degradation. One notable performance was at the Hungry Eye nightclub, where he caught the eye of local promoters. He released his first single, a protest ballad called "The War Drags On," which gained modest airplay on underground radio. This period was nomadic. David hitchhiked across the country, staying with activists and musicians, absorbing the Beats poetry scene in New York and the folk revival in Greenwich Village. Personal relationships began to form amid this chaos. In 1964, at age 21, David married his first wife, Loretta J. Volk. Loretta, a fellow activist met during a CORE meeting, shared his passions. They settled briefly in Berkeley, California, where David worked odd jobs, bartending, teaching guitar, to support them. Their daughter, Heather Jessica Solberg, was born in 1965, adding a layer of responsibility to David's wandering life. Fatherhood softened some of his edges. He spoke of rocking Heather to sleep with lullabies, finding solace in domesticity amid the turmoil. Yet the marriage strained under the pressures of activism. David was often away, and Loretta's concerns about his safety grew. The Vietnam War escalated, and David's protests intensified. In 1966, he was drafted but refused induction, earning conscientious objector status after a lengthy appeal. This victory was bittersweet. It isolated him from family back home, who viewed his choices as unpatriotic. Jessie Solberg, ever the mediator, wrote letters encouraging reconciliation, but David felt a moral imperative to resist. Entry into entertainment and early career struggles. By the late 1960s, David's path veered toward professional entertainment. His folk performances evolved into a more theatrical style, incorporating acting elements. In 1967, he landed a role in the off-Broadway play The Minstrel Man, playing a troubled troubadour, a part that mirrored his life. Critics praised his raw intensity, and it led to television appearances. He guest-starred on shows like The Merv Griffin Show, reciting poetry and singing, which showcased his charisma. Hollywood beckoned in 1968. David moved to Los Angeles with Loretta and Heather, hoping for steady work. Initial gigs were sparse, commercials for car insurance and bit parts in sitcoms. He appeared in an episode of Flipper as a beach bum, leveraging his surfer-like looks. But rejection was frequent. Casting directors saw him as too beatnik for mainstream roles. To survive, David taught acting classes at a community center, drawing on his theater background. A breakthrough came in 1971 with a guest spot on the police drama Owen Marshall, Counselor at Law. Playing a draft dodger, David infused the character with his own convictions, earning acclaim. This led to more TV work. Mannix, the FBI, and Here Come the Brides, where he had a recurring role as Joshua Bolt, a lovable rogue. The show, set in 19th century Seattle, allowed David to explore comedy, a departure from his serious persona. Musically, he signed with a small label, releasing an album titled David's Soul in 1972. Tracks like Bird of Paradise blended folk rock with introspective lyrics, but it flopped commercially. Undeterred, David performed at coffee houses, building a cult following. His stage presence, intense eyes, soulful voice, drew comparisons to a young James Dean. Personal life during this era was tumultuous. The marriage to Loretta ended in divorce in 1973, amicably, but painfully. David cited the strains of his career ambitions clashing with their activist roots. He gained custody of Heather, vowing to be a better father. Loneliness crept in. Late nights in Hollywood motels fueled bouts of depression. Therapy became a lifeline, where David confronted his anger issues stemming from childhood moves and societal pressures. In 1973, David met his second wife, actress Mimi Cietti, on the set of Here Come the Brides. Their whirlwind romance led to marriage in 1974. Mimi, with her grounded personality, provided stability. They had a son, Christopher David Solberg, in 1975. Fatherhood again transformed David. He dedicated time to coaching Little League, finding joy in normalcy. Rise to fame with Starsky and Hutch. The role that defined David's career arrived in 1975. Kenneth Hutch Hutchinson in Starsky and Hutch. Created by William Blinn and produced by Spelling Goldberg, the series paired David with Paul Michael Glaser as the street-smart Starsky. Hutch was the cool intellectual foil, blonde, philosophical, driving a battered Ford Galaxy. Auditioning against dozens, David drew on his activist past to portray Hutch's moral compass, refusing bribes and championing the underdog. Filming began in Los Angeles, with the pilot airing on ABC in April 1975. The chemistry between David and Glaser was electric. Off-screen, they became fast friends, bonding over cars and jazz. The show exploded in popularity, topping ratings by its second season. Episodes blended gritty crime-solving with humor, like Hutch's impersonation, where David sang in a nightclub. Fans adored the duo, spawning merchandise and a cultural phenomenon. Fame brought perks. David bought a house in the Hollywood Hills, hosted celebrity parties with guests like Stevie Wonder. But it also intensified scrutiny. Typecasting loomed. Producers saw him only as the nice cop. David pushed back, directing an episode in 1977 titled Deck Watch, showcasing his vision for socially relevant stories. Musically, stardom boosted his singing career. In 1976, he signed with Private Stock Records, releasing Don't Give Up on Us. The ballad, a plea for love amid doubt, topped charts in the US and UK. David wrote it during a break inspired by Mimi. Follow-up singles like Going In With My Eyes Open and albums David's Soul, 1976, and Playing Backgammon, 1977, sold millions. Tours followed, with sold-out shows in arenas where he mixed pop with folk roots. Awards came: 2 Emmy nominations for Starsky and Hutch, and a People's Choice nod. David used his platform for causes, guesting on anti-drug PSAs and supporting Amnesty International. Yet, the grind wore on him. Long hours, fan mania. In 1978, he publicly criticized typecasting, seeking edgier roles. The show ended in 1979 after 4 seasons, 92 episodes. David reflected on it fondly, but was ready for more. A big screen adaptation was discussed, but it never materialized until years later. Personal life, marriages, children, and intimate struggles. David's personal life was as layered as his career, marked by multiple marriages, fatherhood joys, and battles with inner demons. His first marriage to Loretta, 1964-1973, was a youthful union forged in activism. They shared ideals, protesting together. But Hollywood's allure pulled David away. The divorce was mutual. They remained friends, co-parenting Heather, who pursued acting like her father. With Mimi Siet, 1974-1979, David found a partner in the industry. Their son Christopher brought delight, but the marriage faltered under fame's spotlight. Infidelity rumors swirled, though David denied them, attributing the split to career pressures. Post-divorce, he focused on his children, taking them on vacations to Minnesota, teaching them to fish and sing. In 1980, David married actress 𝗛𝗡𝗠 Manoff, whom he met on a TV set. 𝗛𝗡𝗠, vibrant and supportive, became his muse. They had 3 children: Brendan, 1981, Samantha, 1983, and a son who passed away in infancy, a tragedy that nearly broke David. The loss, in 1984, plunged him into grief. He sought therapy, channeling pain into songwriting. Songs like Emotional from his 1983 album reflected this vulnerability. Fatherhood was David's anchor. He described bedtime stories with Heather coaching Christopher's soccer team and Brendan's first guitar lesson. Samantha, the artistic one, bonded with him over painting. Despite custody battles, David prioritized presence, missing fewer milestones than his nomadic youth allowed. The 1980s brought turmoil. Alcoholism crept in, a coping mechanism for rejection after 𝗪𝗪𝗧. David entered rehab in 1987, emerging sober and renewed. His friendship with 𝗛𝗨𝗧𝗖𝗛 endured. They collaborated on charity events, raising funds for children's hospitals. Relocating to London in 1994 marked a personal renaissance. David fell in love with the city's history, buying a home in Hampstead. There, he met Helen Snell, a British woman 23 years his junior, in 2002 during a theater production. Their romance, sparked over shared laughs, led to marriage in 2010. Helen, a former student-turned-producer, brought youth and stability. No children together, but she embraced his family, organizing reunions. David's health struggles intertwined with personal growth. A 1995 car accident in London left him with back injuries, requiring surgery. Depression followed, but therapy and meditation helped. In 2003, he was diagnosed with lung cancer, undergoing chemotherapy. Remission came in 2004, crediting Helen's support. Later, in 2017, a diagnosis of chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, COPD, from years of smoking forced lifestyle changes, quitting cigars, adopting yoga. Philanthropy reflected his values. David supported child welfare, founding the 𝗪𝗪𝗏 Foundation in the 1980s for foster kids. He visited orphanages in Eastern Europe post-Cold War, using fame to advocate. Environmentally, he backed green initiatives, performing at benefit concerts. Intimacy evolved with age. David spoke candidly in interviews about vulnerability in relationships, crediting each wife for lessons. With Helen, he found peace, enjoying quiet evenings cooking Italian meals. Pasta carbonara was a favorite. Family holidays in Norway honored his roots, with Jesse, who lived until 2002, sharing stories. Challenges persisted. Estrangements with some children over career absences stung, but reconciliations happened. Heather became a producer, Christopher a musician, Brendan an engineer, Samantha a teacher. David beamed at their independence, attending graduations and weddings. In his 70s, David embraced grandfatherhood. Grandkids called him Papa Soul, filling his London home with laughter. Health scares, like a 2020 heart procedure, tested resilience, but optimism prevailed. He journaled daily, reflecting on gratitude, a habit from therapy. Film and television career beyond 𝗪𝗪𝗧 post-𝗪𝗪𝗧, David sought diversity. In 1979, he starred in the miniseries Salem's Lot, playing Ben Mears, a writer battling vampires. Stephen King's adaptation showcased his dramatic range, with chilling scenes in fog-shrouded Maine. Critics lauded his intensity, leading to more horror gigs. The 1980s were eclectic. He headlined the spy thriller The Fifth Missile, 1986, as a submarine commander, drawing on Navy research for authenticity. In Rage, 1980, he portrayed a father seeking justice, infusing real paternal fears. British TV welcomed him. Minder, 1984, as a charming con man, and The Enigma Files, 1980, as a detective. Ironic echoes of Hutch. Theater became a passion. In 1981, David debuted on London's West End in The Man Most Likely To, a comedy that ran for months. He directed and starred, honing skills. Later, Samuel Beckett's Krapp's Last Tape, 1999, at the Riverside Studios was a tour de force, earning Olivier Award buzz for his poignant portrayal of regret. Film roles included Appointment with Death, 1988, a Hercule Poirot mystery with Peter Ustinov. David played a suspicious husband, blending charm with menace. In the 1990s, he appeared in Tabloid, 1986, and Pentathlon, 1994. The latter as a coach to a troubled athlete, reflecting his mentoring side. Television in the UK flourished. He hosted David Soul, The Piano Show, 1995, a musical special, and starred in Dalziel and Pascoe, 1999, as a quirky inspector. Guest spots on Casualty and Holby City showed versatility. In 2004, he played Jerry Springer in Jerry Springer the Opera, a controversial role that sparked debates on censorship. Directing emerged. He helmed episodes of Miami Vice, 1987, influencing neon aesthetics, and his own short film, The Hummingbird Tree, 1992, about cultural clashes in Trinidad. The 2000s-2010s saw selective work. In Filth, 2013, he had a cameo as a judge, praising James McAvoy. Poirot's Curtain, Poirot's Last Case, 2013, reunited him with David Suchet, a meta-nod to mystery roots. Stage revivals like The Dead Duck, 2016, kept him active. A Starsky and Hutch reboot film in 2004 featured Ben Stiller and Owen Wilson, with David in a cameo as the original Hutch's father. Humorous closure. 𝗛𝗏𝗧𝗖𝗛. Musical achievements and artistic evolution. Music was David's first love, evolving from folk to pop stardom. Early protest songs gave way to romantic ballads in the 1970s. Don't Give Up on Us, 1977, was a global hit, peaking at #1 in the UK with its orchestral sweep and earnest vocals. David co-wrote it, drawing from marital strains. Albums proliferated. David's Soul, 1977, went platinum, featuring Going In With My Eyes Open, a upbeat track about commitment. Playing Backgammon, 1977, experimented with disco influences, while Stop Me Before I Do It Again, 1978, delved into rock. Tours packed venues. Wembley Stadium in 1978 saw 80,000 fans. The 1980s shifted introspective. The Covered Man, 1981, included covers of classics like Smoke Gets in Your Eyes, showcasing vocal maturity. Emotional, 1983, tackled loss, post-infant son's death. He collaborated with Paul Anka on duets, blending styles. In the UK, David embraced cabaret. His 1990s album David Soul Live at the Bush contained originals like I Can Never Be Without You, performed with piano accompaniment. He composed for film, scoring themes for The Hustler of Muscle Beach, 1980. Later, folk roots resurfaced. In 2002, he released Leave a Light On, acoustic tracks about redemption. Collaborations with British artists like Beverly Knight added freshness. At 70, he performed at Glastonbury, 2013, a full-circle moment from 1960s festivals. Awards included a 1977 Brit nomination. David viewed music as therapy, recording in home studios, experimenting with jazz and blues. Hout's later years, legacy, and passing David's later career was deliberate. Residing in London with Helen, he taught acting at drama schools, mentoring young talents. Books like My Name is Hutch, 2017, A memoir offered insights into fame's double edge. Health declined in the 2020s. COPD worsened, limiting travel, but he adapted, doing voice work for audiobooks. The COVID-19 pandemic isolated him, but virtual concerts kept connections alive. David's soul passed away on January 4, 2024 at 80 in London. Tributes poured in from 𝗛𝗨𝗧𝗖𝗛, who called him brother, and fans worldwide. His legacy endures, a symbol of 1970s cool, an activist voice, and a multifaceted artist. Through reinventions, David remained authentic, his life a testament to perseverance. From Chicago kid to international star, he navigated fame with grace, leaving songs, stories, and a family enriched by his spirit.